39 days, 18 people, 1 survivor.
One World is not a loved season. It's a perfect storm of boring and rage-inducing. When it doesn't involve Colton being mean towards Bill, or Alicia being terrible towards Christina, it involves a bunch of dead weight pretending to be a cast, twiddling their fingers while the strategic frontrunner waltzes her way to the end with little to no competition. It sounds very similar to our last season, Redemption Island, doesn't it? And here's the kicker. I can't actually tell which one is worse. Every time I think I have it decided, something terrible about the other season pops up in my head, and I end up talking in circles with myself. They're very similar in practice. Both have casts that do whatever the winner tells them to do, leading to a season that's amazingly devoid of any engaging or dramatic strategy. It's a well-known fact in the Survivor community that the best winners can come out of the shittiest seasons because we all know what's going to happen, and therefore it's just a slog to sit through. This isn't even a case of it being obvious on a rewatch. We know it right now when we're watching it for the first time. Okay, well, at least One World's predictable edit starts like right at the merge. We didn't know Kim is going to win from episode 1. Then again, RI does at least have some cast members besides the winner that are entertaining and likable. I mean, yeah, all of the likable people in Redemption Island, minus Boston Rob, are all voted out pre-merge, but at least it has those likable people. What does One World have? The most notable characters in One World is Survivor Goddess Kim Spradlin, the 4-year-old trapped in a 22-year-old named Kat, Colton the racist, and Tarzan the gross old man who defends the racist and also throws his poopy underwear around at camp. But Redemption Island has Redemption Island, which is one of the worst twists in the show history. But One World has truly unlikable players such as Alicia and Colton, so I'm going back and forth on which season is worse to me. For now, I'm going to say it's Redemption Island. Redemption Island is truly lifeless, and the editors clearly didn't care about anyone not named Rob or Philip. But that doesn't make this season any better. So in an effort to structure this review, I'm going to talk about all the important characters individually, all 2 of them, and discuss their importance to the season as a whole. For the record, I wouldn't or shouldn't be able to do this with a good season, because a good season would have more than 2 people who are notable and important to the season's overarching storyline. So let's start with Colton. So Colton is the token, fabulous gay guy that always gets cast on the show so they can pretend that they filled their LGBTQ representation quota. Oh, and fun fact, I was watching this season during June, aka during Pride Month. Yeah, that was fun. At this point, his only strategy entering this game is to be the gay best friend to all the girls. That's his only card going into the game. He has literally no backup plan. So it comes as a shock to him when Jeff announces that the tribes are going to be separated by gender. And a side note here, this is just a separate problem. Like Peridium said, One World as an idea was going to be so much better if the tribes weren't so, you know, they had that collective social tissue. It was men versus women. If One World, which is the twist of the season, wanted to be really interesting, they wouldn't have split the tribes up like this. They would have done it randomly, so then we could have actually seen the dynamics of the 2 tribes living on the same camp play out, instead of it just still being a very binary tribe versus tribe thing. Anyway, Colton is the only gay guy on a tribe full of alpha males and Tarzan. So he decides to always invade the girls' camp and asks to hang out with them, and he's really whiny and obnoxious and spoiled and nobody likes him. But if this was the extent of his terribleness, that would be fine, right? But we're not done. Realizing he has to make an effort to actually associate with his tribe, he makes an alliance of 5 consisting of Tarzan, Troyzan, yes really, Jonas, Leif, and himself. So, you know, he just wants to make an alliance, nothing questionable there, right? Nothing morally wrong. But one of the first things he wants his alliance to do is take out Bill. Because, let's just say he doesn't like Bill very much. Why doesn't he like Bill? Who knows? Maybe it's because he doesn't like that he's a stand-up comedian and that he should get a real job. Maybe it's because he's ghetto trash. Wait, what? Yes, in a shocking turn of events, the Republican cis-gay white men might be a little bit racist. Who would have thought? So yeah, his abysmal treatment of Bill goes on for a couple of episodes. He doesn't want to talk to him, he doesn't want to be around him, he wants nothing to do with him. In fact, he hates Bill so much that he's willing to give immunity over to the girls' tribe after they already won the challenge, just so that they could get the terrible cancer that is Bill out of the tribe. It's ridiculous. And you know, giving up tribal immunity is something weird and flashy and entertaining and something that has never happened before. So this should be fun, right? This should be interesting and entertaining. But remember the reason that he wants to get Bill out. is because he thinks he's ghetto trash. This is not even a case of a person being a villain that people love to hate. This is now just crossing the line to being a terrible person. He tells Bill that he should kill himself. He, again, and I feel like I haven't iterated this enough, calls Bill ghetto trash. He just hates him for no good reason. What did Bill do? I feel gross even asking that because that implies that Bill could have done something that would have warranted this never-ending bullying from this spoiled brat. I know people say that it's boring television when everyone is a decent person to each other, but in my opinion, someone being a terrible, terrible human being isn't exciting or fun or entertaining. It's uncomfortable. It's not fun to watch at all. I'd rather my survivor villains be like Jonathan Penner, or Richard Hatch, or even a Russell Hantz. Like I said, Colton is not a classic survivor villain. He's just a bad person, and this isn't even an isolated incident. After the tribe switched, him and Alicia decide to verbally abuse Christina for, again, the crime of nothing. Now, this time racism isn't on the surface, but it is kind of weird that the two main targets that Colton verbally abused throughout his time on the island happened to both be people of color. The only episode where Colton does make for an entertaining episode is the one where he's trying to take Monica out. And he needs Tarzan's vote, and Tarzan cannot for the life of him remember who Monica is. In fact, Jeff Probst asks Tarzan to name all the people on his tribe at Tribal Council, and he can name every single one until he gets to Monica. And then he forgets who her name is, and it's just absolutely hilarious to watch. This is like one of the only good episodes. Colton's not berating anybody here. He's still a villain, but this is the only episode where he's an actual survivor villain. You know, like the fun kind of villain. Now, you're probably asking, if I hate Colton so much, why did I spend all of the review up to this point talking about him? He's like the 6th person eliminated thanks to a stomach bug, but he dominates so much during the pre-merge that besides the best winner ever dominating the season, he's literally the only interesting thing to talk about. Colton claims at the reunion that the season got boring after he left. Well, and that's true. Well, not that it actually got boring, but yes, a lot of people did claim that. A lot of people believe that Colton leaving really did hurt the season in the long run. Now, I think the season was already terrible before he got there, because if the season's most impactful moments are acts of bullying and bigotry, then something is very, very wrong. Now, in the midst of all this unpleasantness, there is one redeeming quality that makes the season not the worst thing ever. It's time to talk about Survivor Goddess Kim Spradlin. All hail the Survivor Goddess. She is the best winner besides Sandra, because even though she played a mediocre game in Heroes vs. Villains, she did twice. But besides that, Kim's the best winner. Kim Spradlin is the best winner, as in she had the best single-season performance of any winner ever. Her cold, calculated moves, and her ability to not only keep people in line, but also get people to vote against their own best interests and take away their own power without them even realizing it. Maybe her success in the game is entirely dependent on the fact that the men voluntarily gave up immunity, or perhaps it's dependent on the fact that if Colton does not get medically evacuated, he probably uses his idol to vote out one of Kim's numbers. You know, most winners have luck involved. Those things are the only 2 things that could go wrong with Kim's entire game. She has this game wrapped around her finger from the word go. And after 2 years of dealing with Survivor fans praising Michelle for doing absolutely nothing, it's kind of cool to be like, ha, see, she was the most dominant player, and she won the season. Suck on that. It's time to actually talk about Kim's game. Once the game starts, Kim immediately makes an alliance with Alicia, Kat, Chelsea, and Sabrina. The tribe swap happens, and Kim takes advantage of the fact that she's on the Greek god tribe and uses this tribal council free time to forge an alliance with Jay and Troy. So in the likely event that Colton eliminates Alicia or Christina, she'll still have the numbers. Colton gets medevac, so they enter the merge with equal numbers of men and women. But Kim is actually into overlapping alliances, so she can decide which way she wants to go. She's acting like she's in both with the old and new versions of Solani. And she can keep up this illusion because the first person she goes to vote out is Jonas, who is again both a member of the old and new Monono, meaning both of her alliances are still in the majority. The next vote comes around, and she then decides that she does want to go to the end with all women. But first, she feels like she still needs the men to vote her way. This is the only thing that's unclear to me. The women are already in the majority, so I don't exactly see why she had to get Troy and Jay to vote with her. Why Christina and Alicia didn't just vote with her in the Michael vote. But anyway, she makes up this phony baloney story about Michael wanting Troy out, and Troy buys it hook, line, and sinker. Jay is worried that they're taking all the men out. It doesn't exactly reassure him when Chelsea talks to him about the Monono alliance with the girls in the hut right in front of them that are not supposed to be in that alliance. Kim hears this. She offers up the idea of voting Christina out with the full knowledge that this is not going to happen. She just wants to appear open to all the possibilities and not arouse suspicion. So, at an undetermined time, Jay decides to go along with the plan to vote out Mike. Now, he's totally comfortable with the girls, and Troy is the one who's nervous. He realizes that, hey, wait a minute, maybe voting out 2 men right after the merge wasn't the best idea after all. He tells Jay that he's going to play his idol and vote for Kim, and Jay, like the very good little Kim puppet that he is, immediately releases information to Kim herself. Kim then sets in motion a plan to split the votes between Jay and Troy, and Jay is sent home. Again, getting one of the men, although at this point it's just Tarzan, to vote out one of their own. So now, Survivor Goddess Kim Spradlin, which is how you say her name. You have to say her name like that. It's not just Kim, it's not just Kim Spradlin, it's Survivor Goddess Kim Spradlin. So Survivor Goddess Kim Spradlin, she realizes she has to take Troy out of the next vote because Troy is trying to get people on his side to vote out Kim. Now, this doesn't work. Troy wins immunity, and they just send someone else home, don't remember. But then, eventually, Troy doesn't win, and they just send him home with the next vote. You got all that? There's only one man left. He's the kooky old guy from before, who for the life of him couldn't remember Monica's name, and inexplicably voted with the women at every tribal council post-merge, except for the times when he voted for Christina at the Michael and Troy votes to protect against an idol. Basically, he's voted how he's been told to vote, all while pretending there's some deep hidden strategy in his head and repeating ad nauseum that the game is afoot. So up to this point, Kim has played one of the most dominant games the show has ever seen. Pretty much has known where everyone stands at any point throughout the game, and she has people happily eating out of the palm of her hand. Oh, and she's won 2 immunities up to this point. She tells people how to vote, and they do so, and if someone doesn't want to do so, she promptly slits their throat. She's been in control, and everyone thinks they're with her. She's excelled physically, strategically, and socially. But none of that compares to what she's about to do now. Okay, so there's 6 people left of the game, and the game is split into 2 sides. There's Sabrina, Chelsea, and Kim, and then there's Alicia, Christina, Tarzan, and Kim. Yeah, both sides think they have Kim. And at this point, Kim realizes that it's probably the smarter move to go with the goats, because if there's anyone who could beat Survivor Goddess Kim Spradlin, it's the well-spoken Sabrina and the likable Chelsea. But she has a deep personal connection to all the girls here at this point, so it's going to be hard to cut Chelsea and Sabrina. Chelsea wins the reward and takes Sabrina and Survivor Goddess Kim Spradlin with her. Once there, Survivor Goddess Kim Spradlin decides once and for all to go to the final 3 with these 2 girls. But she still doesn't want there to be a tie, because a tie could be really dangerous. Kim still has her idol, so even if she's unlikely to get any of the 3 on her side, she can still play the idol for Chelsea, which is where the votes are most likely to go. But she still doesn't want to risk it, so she convinces Alicia that Tarzan is a master manipulator who's planning to blindside her. I don't know how she does this. She convinces someone that Tarzan is a strategic threat. She gets all the women remaining to vote out the last man standing, and in the process gets Alicia to do what she's convinced all the men to do. Voluntarily vote out one of her own numbers. It's amazing. Kim is amazing at getting people to trust her before eventually slitting their throats, and she does it without acting smug or even coming across as scummy. She's still the lovable Kim that got you to spill your heart out to her in the first place. She votes out the obvious goat because she can. She's Kim, and she's going to win no matter what. And after playing the best game that any first-timer has ever played, the jury respects that, and she wins with 7 votes to her name, and that's how she wins Survivor One World. There's a reason I spent so much of this review talking about Kim. After Colton leaves, Kim is the closest thing to a narrator this season has. I assume that once the editors realized that Kim was going to own the game in a way it rarely sees, they decided to turn this season into a How to Win Survivor 101. And, you know, a real Survivor 101, not a How to Win Survivor if you're playing for your 4th time and the producers love you. That was Redemption Island. She played the game with an intensity close to Boston Rob levels, and she did it on an equal playing field. There's really no better way to demonstrate the key difference between Rob and Kim than with this. Rob, even though he played a dominant game, had to take 2 goats to the end because there was no way he was going to win anyway. He hadn't warranted enough respect from the jury for them to vote for him if he was sitting next to a Grant or a Matt or even an Ashley. And why should they? He's a 4th timer, they're all 1st timers. This was like the easiest win ever. Kim, on the other hand, actually thought her chances were better by voting out the goat. She would get more respect if she brought good people to the end. In other words, it doesn't matter who Kim takes because she likely wins anyway. What, you're gonna tell me that even if she does take Christina, Christina beats her? I don't think so. Kim gave the most single dominating performance ever, and everyone else is still trying to top her. But to no avail. She will always be the best. The only bad thing you could say about her is that her style of dominance doesn't really make for good television. As a fan of Survivor the game, I have to applaud her for making the most complex game ever created by human hands look like child's play. But as a fan of Survivor the TV show, I can't help but realize that her dominance is one of the reasons this season blows so much. Like, this whole review has basically just been a retrospective on Kim Broadland's game and how I love her so much, as opposed to an actual review of the season itself. No doubt at all that she would win. It's still better than Redemption Island because at the very least, everyone is on a level playing field. And the tribe swaps add one extra layer of gameplay that was sorely lacking in Redemption Island. Not a great season by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not the worst. I will say, I'm super excited to be moving on to the next season on this list because it's a season I have never watched. Until next time.
Don't hate me because I'm eating this peanut butter.